The black ships hung in the darkness like stones at the bottom of a deep ocean. They did not move. They did not make sound. They simply waited at the edge of the galaxy, invisible to every scanner and sensor that swept past them. Inside the largest ship, Admiral G1 stood before a massive window staring at the distant stars. Her face showed no emotion, but her eyes burned with something cold and patient. Behind her, officers moved quietly through the bridge. Everyone knew what this moment meant. For 10,000 years, humanity had waited. They had hidden in the darkness between galaxies. They had built ships that no one had ever imagined. They had trained warriors in ways the old galaxy had forgotten. And now, finally, they had returned. G1 touched a button on her wrist. Throughout the entire fleet, on every ship carrying the last 50 million humans alive, screens flickered to life. Soldiers stopped their training. Engineers paused their work. Families in the living quarters fell silent. Everyone watched as their admiral appeared before them. "My people," G1 said. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight. "We stand at the threshold of everything we have prepared for. 10,000 years ago, the Galactic Council burned our home. They killed 12 billion of our brothers and sisters. They destroyed Earth not because we threatened them, but because we refused to bow." She paused, letting her words sink in. On 1,000 ships, people nodded. Some had tears in their eyes. Others clenched their fists. "They thought we would disappear," G1 continued. "They thought we would fade into history like dust in the wind. But we did not disappear. We survived. We grew stronger. We became something they never expected. And now we have returned to collect what is owed." The screen changed, showing a military base floating in space. It was massive, covered in weapons and shields. Lights blinked along its surface like stars. "This is Thalos Prime," G1 said. 10,000 years ago, the Council fleet launched from here to burn Earth. Today we take it. Not for revenge, but for justice. Not for hatred, but for memory. We will show the galaxy that crimes against life do not fade with time." The transmission ended. Ji-won turned to Commander Minho, who stood at the weapons station. He was younger than her by a century, but his eyes held the same cold fire. "Begin the operation," she said. Minho nodded and spoke into his communicator. "Daeho, you are clear to proceed." Far ahead, invisible even to human sensors, Lieutenant Daeho and his team drifted toward Thalos Prime. Their suits were black, absorbing all light and energy. They made no heat, no sound, no trace. They were ghosts. Daeho watched the base grow larger in his view. He had trained his entire life for missions like this, but his heart still beat faster. This was not just another target. This was the place where humanity's nightmare began. He touched the side of his helmet, feeling the weight of history. "Team, spread out," he whispered. His 5 companions moved silently, each taking a different approach to the base. They passed through defensive fields as if the fields did not exist. Sensors swept over them and detected nothing. Guard ships flew past within meters and saw only empty space. Daeho reached the outer hull first. He placed a device against the metal and waited. Molecules rearranged themselves, creating a passage just wide enough for him to slip through. Inside, he found himself in a storage room filled with supplies. Empty. Good. He moved through the corridors like a shadow. The base was huge, home to thousands of council soldiers. They walked past him without seeing him. They talked and laughed, completely unaware that death moved among them. Daeho felt no satisfaction in this. He simply observed and recorded. In the command center, he planted listening devices in places no one would think to look. He copied their defense codes, their patrol routes, their communication frequencies. Everything the fleet would need. Then he discovered something that made him pause. The technology was old. Not just old, but ancient by human standards. The computers ran on systems humanity had abandoned thousands of years ago. The weapons used power cores that were inefficient and slow. Even their newest ships looked like museum pieces. Daeho spoke quietly into his communicator. "Admiral, they have not advanced. Their technology is frozen in time." Back on the command ship, Ji-won smiled for the first time. "Then they have learned nothing. Proceed to extraction." Daeho and his team ghosted back through the base, leaving no trace they had ever been there. Within an hour, they were back in space, drifting toward the fleet. When they were safely aboard, Daeho went straight to the bridge. "All data collected," he reported. "The base has 40,000 personnel, 200 defense platforms, and a garrison fleet of 60 ships. Their shields are strong but predictable. Their weapons are powerful but slow to target. They expect attacks from known vectors using known methods. Good, Jiwan said. She turned to Minho. Commander, you may begin. Minho's fingers danced across his controls. Around the fleet, weapon systems came alive. But these were not the weapons the Council knew. These were devices built from principles discovered in exile, forged in the darkness, perfected through necessity. Drop stealth, Minho ordered. All ships, full assault. The black ships appeared suddenly in the space around Thalos Prime. One moment there was nothing. The next moment there were 50 vessels of war, each one larger and darker than anything the Council had seen before. Alarms screamed across the base. Defense platforms swiveled toward the new threat. Ships scrambled to launch, but they were too slow. The human weapons fired. They did not use lasers or missiles or plasma bolts. They used something else, something that bent space itself. Where the beams touched Council ships, the ships simply collapsed inward, crushed by impossible forces. Defense platforms exploded without being hit. Their own power cores turned against them. Shields flickered and died, overloaded by frequencies they could not block. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, not a single Council ship remained operational. The base itself was intact, but every weapon was destroyed, every shield was down, every system was offline. 40,000 soldiers sat in the darkness waiting for death. But death did not come. Instead, Jiwan's voice echoed through every speaker on the base. You are defeated but not destroyed. You will live to carry a message. Tell the Council that humanity has returned. Tell them we remember Earth. Tell them that justice is coming and it will not stop until every crime is answered. The transmission cut off. The human fleet gathered itself and vanished back into the darkness, leaving Thalos Prime crippled but alive. A message had been sent. A warning had been delivered. On the command ship, Dr. Hana approached Jiwan. She was older than the Admiral, her face lined with years of study and thought. I need to examine the prisoners, she said. We captured 20 during the battle. I want to understand how they think. Jiwan nodded. Do what you must. But remember, they are not our enemy. Their ancestors were. These are simply inheritors of guilt. Hana went to the holding cells where Council soldiers waited in fear. She spoke to them gently, asking questions. What she learned disturbed her deeply. These soldiers genuinely did not understand what they had done wrong. When she asked about Earth, they looked confused. One of them actually said, "But you broke the law. Punishment was required." They saw nothing wrong with destroying an entire species for disobedience. To them, it was simply how the galaxy worked. The strong ruled. The weak obeyed. Those who refused were eliminated. It was not cruelty. It was order. Hana returned to the bridge with a heavy heart. Admiral, they do not see themselves as criminals. They believe they were right. Jiwan stared out at the stars. Then we have much work to do. We must teach the galaxy a new way of thinking. And if they will not learn through words, they will learn through defeat. She activated the fleet-wide communication again. Every human heard her next words. Today was the first step. We have shown them we exist. We have shown them we are strong. Now we show them we are many, we are patient, and we will not rest until justice is done. The Council destroyed our home. We will destroy their certainty. They took our past. We will take their future. And when it is over, the galaxy will remember that some debts can wait 10,000 years, but they must still be paid. The fleet moved deeper into Council space. Behind them on Thalos Prime, survivors scrambled to send warnings to their leaders. They spoke of ships that appeared from nowhere, weapons that defied understanding, and humans who fought with perfect precision. But most of all, they spoke of the message, the promise, the threat that echoed in every transmission. We remember. The Council chambers on Velonis had not changed in 80,000 years. The walls were made of living crystal that hummed with ancient power. 12 seats arranged in a circle, each one belonging to a different species. These were the rulers of the galaxy, the masters of 1,000,000 worlds. They had crushed rebellions, absorbed entire civilizations, and maintained order through absolute strength. Now they sat in confusion, watching the recording from Thalos Prime for the 10th time. Impossible, said the representative from the Korthan Empire. His scales rippled with agitation. Humans were primitives. They barely had functional faster than light travel. Even with 10,000 years, they could not have achieved this. The Supreme Counselor, an ancient being whose species had ruled longest, raised a thin hand for silence. And yet they have. The evidence is clear. 40,000 of our soldiers defeated in minutes. Ships destroyed without understanding how. This is not the work of primitives. Then we send a real fleet, another counselor argued. Not a garrison, but a battle group. Show them that one lucky strike means nothing. The Supreme Counselor nodded slowly. Agreed. Dispatch Fleet Command 7. 80 capital ships, full support vessels. Find these humans and eliminate them. Permanently this time. Fleet Command 7 launched within days. It was a force large enough to conquer small empires. The ships were massive, covered in weapons that could crack planets. The crews were veterans who had fought in dozens of campaigns. They jumped into the sector where the humans had last been seen, expecting an easy victory. They found nothing. No ships, no signals, no trace. For 3 weeks they searched, growing more frustrated. Then the attacks began. Ships on the edge of the formation simply vanished. One moment they were there, reporting normal status. The next moment, silence. No distress calls, no explosions, just nothing. The fleet tightened formation, but it did not help. More ships disappeared. The attacks came from nowhere and everywhere. The fleet admiral ordered full retreat. 40 of his 80 ships made it back to council space. The rest were gone. He arrived at Valonis in a state of shock, barely able to speak. When he finally gave his report, the council listened in growing horror. They were never there, he said, his voice shaking. We saw nothing on sensors. Nothing on visual. They hit us from impossible ranges with weapons that should not exist. My weapons officer said our own physics proved what they did was impossible. But my ships are gone, so clearly our physics are wrong. The Supreme Counselor leaned forward. Did you see them at all? Any glimpse of their ships or technology? The Admiral nodded. Once. A single ship dropped stealth right before destroying my flagship's sister vessel. It was black, completely black. No lights, no markings. And it moved like it was reading our minds, anticipating every maneuver. It was like fighting something that knew what we would do before we did it. The council dismissed him and began urgent deliberations. Some members still insisted this was exaggeration, that humans could not possibly be this dangerous. Others demanded immediate mobilization of all military forces. The argument went on for days. While they argued, the human fleet continued its campaign. They struck supply depots, research stations, communication hubs. Every target was military. Every attack was swift. And every time they left one survivor to tell the tale. The pattern was clear. Humanity was not trying to conquer. They were sending a message. Commander Minho sat in his command chair aboard the Silent Vengeance, watching another council station burn. He felt no joy in this. Each victory was just another step on a path that had been laid out 10,000 years ago. His tactical officer approached with a report. Sir, we have intercepted council communications. They are beginning to fracture. Some species are questioning the war. Others are demanding negotiation. Minho nodded. Good. Fear makes them think. Thinking makes them question. Questions lead to truth, and the truth is that they were wrong. He opened a channel to Admiral Jiwan. Admiral, the council is starting to break. Should we press harder? Jiwan appeared on his screen. No, let them stew in their fear. Fear is a teacher. Let it teach them what Earth felt in those final moments. Elsewhere in the fleet, Lieutenant Deho had been given a new mission. He and his team infiltrated a council research station far behind enemy lines. What they found there made his blood run cold. The station was full of human technology. Devices, blueprints, entire systems stolen from Earth before its destruction. Deho copied everything and returned to the fleet. When he showed his findings to Dr. Hana, her face went pale. They did not just destroy us, she said quietly. They robbed us first. These innovations, these discoveries, the Council has been claiming them as their own for 10,000 years. She brought the evidence to Jiwan. The Admiral studied it in silence for a long time. Finally, she spoke. This changes things. They did not just commit genocide. They committed theft of an entire civilization's legacy. This must be shown to the galaxy. Jiwan prepared a new transmission. This time, she broadcast it not just to the Council, but to every species in the galaxy. The message was simple and devastating. She showed the stolen technology. She showed the records proving it came from Earth. She showed how the Council had built their supremacy partly on human innovation, while claiming humans were primitive. You called us backwards, Jiwan said in the broadcast. You called us unworthy. You said we had nothing to contribute. But you stole our ideas, our inventions, our science. You took our future and claimed it as yours. Then you burned our world to hide the evidence. This is what the Council truly is. Not guardians of order, but thieves and murderers dressed in authority. The broadcast spread like fire across the galaxy. Younger species, those who lived under Council rule, began to question. If the Council lied about humans, what else had they lied about? Protests erupted on dozens of worlds. Some species began refusing to send troops to fight humanity. Back on Volanus, the Council faced a crisis worse than any military defeat. Their moral authority was crumbling. 3 of the 12 Council species sent secret messages to humanity, asking for terms of surrender. They wanted out of the war before it was too late. The Supreme Councilor called an emergency session. "We must respond," he declared. "We must show strength. Activate the reserve fleets. Call up every ship, every soldier. If we do not crush this rebellion now, we will lose everything." "And if we lose to them?" asked one counselor. "These humans have defeated everything we sent. What makes you think more ships will help?" "Because we have weapons they do not know about," the Supreme Councilor said. "Ancient weapons locked away for emergencies. Weapons that can destroy stars themselves. If we cannot defeat them conventionally, we will use these." The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew what he was suggesting. The Starbreaker, a device so terrible that it had been banned even by the Council's own laws. To use it would mean admitting they were desperate. But desperation was setting in. Dr. Hana intercepted the Council's internal communications and learned of this weapon. She immediately went to Jiwan. "Admiral, they are considering using a planet killer, something that can destroy entire star systems. If they use it, millions will die." Jiwan's expression did not change. "Then we must ensure they never get the chance. Prepare the fleet for the next phase. We go to Earth." "Earth?" Hana asked. "But it is a dead world. Why go there now?" "Because the galaxy needs to see what the Council did," Jiwan replied. "They need to see the ashes. They need to understand that this is not a war of conquest. This is justice for a crime so terrible that 10,000 years have not erased it. And when they see Earth, they will understand why we cannot stop, why we will not stop, until every guilty party has answered for what they did." The fleet changed course, heading for the Sol system. Behind them, they left a trail of defeated Council forces and growing chaos. The galaxy was waking up to a new reality. The age of the Council was ending. Something else was beginning. And at the center of it all was a species that had been pronounced dead 10,000 years ago. Humanity had returned, and the Council was finally starting to understand what that meant. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Ahead, the sun still burned yellow and warm, but the third planet from that sun was nothing but a ball of scorched rock. Earth was dead. On the command ship, Admiral Jiwan stood perfectly still, staring at the brown sphere on the view screen. She had seen recordings, had studied images, had known what to expect. But seeing it in person was different. This was the world where humanity was born. This was home, and it looked like the surface of a furnace. "Begin scanning," she said quietly. "Find me something. Anything that survived." The ship's sensors swept across the dead planet. Most of the surface was melted rock. The oceans had boiled away thousands of years ago. The atmosphere was thin and poisonous, but deep underground the scanners found something. Structures, massive bunkers built to withstand the end of the world. Lieutenant Deho volunteered to lead the expedition. He had never seen Earth before. Like everyone his age, he was born in exile aboard the ships, but he carried Earth in his heart, in his genetic memory, in every story he had been told since childhood. Now he would walk on the soil where his ancestors died. The landing shuttle descended through the thin atmosphere. Deho and his team wore sealed suits. The surface temperature was high enough to boil water. The air would kill them in seconds. As they approached the landing site near what had once been a city, Deho saw the ruins. Foundations of buildings melted but still recognizable. Roads fused into rivers of glass, and everywhere the marks of incredible heat. The Council had not just destroyed Earth, they had tried to erase it completely. "There," his sensor officer pointed. "Underground entrance. 3 kilometers down, still sealed." They found the access shaft and descended into darkness. The elevator no longer worked, so they used climbing gear, dropping slowly into the depths. The temperature decreased as they went down. Finally, after an hour of descent, they reached a massive metal door. On it was written in ancient Korean, "Archive of Humanity." Deho placed his hand on the door. His suit connected to the ancient systems, providing power and authentication. The door had been waiting for humans to return. It recognized him. With a groan of metal that had not moved in 10,000 years, the door opened. Inside was a chamber the size of a city. Lights flickered on automatically, weak but functional. And everywhere, filling the space, were data cores. Millions of them. Each one containing memories, recordings, documents. The final testament of a dying world. Daiho connected to the nearest terminal. A face appeared on the screen. A woman, middle-aged, wearing a military uniform. She was crying. If you are seeing this, then some of us survived. Then we made it. Then humanity lives. She paused, wiping her eyes. I am General Kim. Today is the last day of Earth. The Council fleet arrived 4 hours ago. They gave us no warning, no chance to surrender. They just began firing. Our shields held for 37 minutes. Now they are gone. Now the planet is burning. The recording continued. We have sealed everyone we could in the deep bunkers. 500 million people are down here with me, but we know we will not survive. The heat will reach us eventually. The air will run out. We are dead, but we want you to know what happened. We want you to remember. We want you to bear witness. More recordings followed. Families saying goodbye. Scientists documenting the attack. Leaders making final statements. And one recording from someone Daiho recognized. A younger counselor, Kyungmi, her face full of grief and rage. I failed you, she said to the camera. I was your voice in the council and I failed. I believed in diplomacy and reason, in the power of words. But they did not want words. They wanted obedience. And when we would not bow, they chose murder. Her expression hardened. But I swear to you, on every life lost today, I will survive. I will bear witness. And I will see that this crime does not go unpunished. However long it takes, however far we must go, we will return and justice will be done. Daiho felt tears on his face. He had never cried before. He did not think he knew how. But standing in this tomb, listening to the voices of the dead, something broke inside him. His team explored deeper into the archive. They found more than just recordings. In sealed chambers cooled to near absolute zero, they discovered storage units containing something impossible. Genetic data, not just samples but complete genetic maps of billions of humans. Names, DNA sequences, even memory patterns preserved through advanced scanning. Dr. Hana arrived with the second wave of explorers. When she saw what they had found, she could barely speak. This is everyone, she whispered. Everyone who died. They can be brought back. We have the technology now. We could resurrect the entire population of Earth. The news reached Admiral Jiwon immediately. She came down to the archive herself, something she rarely did. She stood before the genetic storage units, her hand pressed against the cold metal. Inside were her ancestors, her family, people she had only known through stories and genetic memory. They could live again, but Jiwon shook her head slowly. Not yet. We cannot bring them back to a galaxy where this can happen again. We must finish what we started. Make the galaxy safe. Then, and only then, will we resurrect our dead. In another part of the archive, Commander Minho made a different discovery. Ancient artificial intelligences dormant for 10,000 years. When his team powered them up, the machines spoke with voices that sounded almost human. We have waited, the primary AI said. We watched over this place. We guarded the memories and the dead. We knew humans would return. We had faith. These AI had perfect records of everything. Every attack, every council decision, every crime committed against Earth. They had evidence that would stand in any court, prove any charge. The Council's guilt was absolute and undeniable. While the exploration continued, Council forces arrived in the Sol system. They had tracked the human fleet and saw an opportunity. The humans were distracted on the surface, vulnerable. 40% of the Council's entire military might jumped in system, weapons hot, ready to trap and destroy the human fleet. Commander Minho saw them coming. He smiled. They think we are unprepared. Show them otherwise. The human fleet had been waiting. Half their ships were hidden in the debris field that orbited Earth. Remains of the old defense stations, satellites, destroyed ships from the original battle. The Council fleet entered the system and immediately came under fire from every direction. Minho turned Earth itself into a weapon. He used the planet's gravity to slingshot debris at incredible speeds. Chunks of metal the size of buildings slammed into Council ships, tearing through shields and armor. The enemy tried to retreat but found themselves surrounded. Human ships appeared from every hiding spot, cutting off escape routes. The battle was fierce. For the first time, the Council fought with true desperation. They knew this was their best chance to defeat humanity. If they failed here, the war was lost. So they threw everything into the fight. But Minho had planned for this. Every maneuver, every tactic, every strategy. He had studied the Council's methods for his entire life. He knew how they thought, how they fought, and he used that knowledge to dismantle them piece by piece. From the surface, Daiho and the others watched the battle in the sky. Flashes of light, silent explosions visible even through the atmosphere. It lasted 5 hours. When it ended, 70% of the Council fleet was destroyed. The rest fled in disorder, broken and defeated. Before they could escape the system, Counselor Kyungmi broadcast a message to the fleeing ships. She spoke in their languages, used their protocols. She was 10,000 years old now, the last living person who had seen Earth before its burning. "I offer you mercy," she said. "Surrender now. Face trial for what was done. Accept responsibility. And you will live. You will be treated fairly under law. But if you continue to fight, if you continue to deny the truth, then you will share the fate of this world. Choose now." 3 ships turned back and surrendered. The rest jumped away, carrying news of another devastating defeat. On the command ship, Jiwon gathered her officers. They stood together in the archive, surrounded by the voices of the dead. "The Council will use their doomsday weapon now," Jiwon said. "They have nothing left to lose. They will threaten to destroy entire star systems if we do not stop. So we must move quickly. We must end this before they can use that weapon. We go to Volanus. We end the Council. And we make sure that what happened to Earth never happens to any world again." She prepared one final broadcast from Earth's surface. She showed the galaxy everything. The ruins, the recordings, the evidence. She let the dead speak for themselves. And at the end, she made a promise. This is what the Council did. This is the price of their order. 12 billion dead, an entire world erased. And for what? Because we would not submit. Because we believed in freedom. Look at this place and understand. This is not about vengeance. This is about ensuring no species ever has to fear this fate again. We are coming for the Council. Not to destroy, but to bring justice. And when it is done, we will rebuild. We will resurrect our dead. And we will create a galaxy where might does not make right. Where the strong protect the weak and where crimes like this are impossible because everyone stands together against them. The broadcast ended. The fleet prepared to leave. The human fleet gathered at the edge of the Voloni system. Before them lay the capital of the Galactic Council, a world that had never known war. Beautiful cities covered the surface. Billions of civilians went about their lives unaware that their leaders had brought doom to their doorstep. Admiral Jiwon studied the defenses. They were formidable. Thousands of ships. Orbital stations armed with enough firepower to destroy planets. Defense satellites covering every approach. And somewhere on the surface, hidden in a bunker beneath the Council chambers, was the Starbreaker. Dr. Hana brought her final analysis. The Starbreaker can cause the sun to collapse. It will destroy this entire system. Everyone will die. 4 billion souls. Will they use it? Jiwon asked. Hana hesitated. I believe they would rather die than surrender. They have ruled for so long that they cannot imagine anything else. To them, defeat is worse than death. Lieutenant Daiho stepped forward. Then let me disable it. My team can infiltrate the surface, reach the Council chambers, and shut down the Starbreaker before they can use it. It is a suicide mission, Commander Minho said. The chamber is protected by the best security in the galaxy. You would have to fight through thousands of guards. I know, Daiho replied. But if we are to be better than the Council, we must prove it. We cannot allow 4 billion innocents to die. If there is a chance to save them, we must take it. That is what separates us from them. Jiwon looked at the young officer for a long moment. He was right, of course. If humanity destroyed Volanus, they would be no better than the Council that destroyed Earth. Justice required more than revenge. It required mercy, even for enemies. Go, she said finally. Take your best team. I will give you 12 hours. If you cannot disable the weapon in that time, we will withdraw and find another way. Daiho and his team of 50 soldiers prepared for the mission. They were the best of the best, trained for impossible operations. But even they knew the odds were terrible. Still, not one hesitated. They believed in what humanity had become during their exile. They believed in justice over revenge. The infiltration began with a single stealth shuttle dropping through Volanus's atmosphere. They landed in a park near the council chambers. Guards patrolled everywhere, but the team moved like ghosts. They reached the building's outer wall and began cutting through. Inside, alarms screamed. The council had detected them. Deho abandoned stealth. Fast assault. Move, move, move! They fought through corridors filled with guards. Council soldiers fell before the precise fire of human weapons. But the defenders were many and the humans were few. Deho lost soldiers with every level they descended. The price was terrible, but they pushed forward. Above the planet, Commander Minho engaged the council fleet. His orders were clear. Keep the enemy busy. Make them focus on the space battle. Give Deho time. The space battle was unlike anything before. The council fought with desperation, throwing everything into the fight. They knew this was the end. If they lost here, they lost everything. Minho found himself fighting not against a military, but against the dying gasps of an empire. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Stations crumbled under sustained fire. The void filled with debris and the dying. Minho felt each loss on both sides. These were not the people who burned Earth. Most of them were not even alive when it happened. They were just soldiers following orders like soldiers always had. He opened a channel to Admiral Jiwon. Is this what we wanted? Is this justice? Or have we just become new tyrants bringing death to those who had no choice? Jiwon's response was quiet. That is why Deho is down there. That is why we try to save them even as they fight us. We show them through our actions that we are different. We show them that strength can be merciful, and if we must fight, we fight only those who refuse to see reason. Deep in the council chambers, Deho and the survivors of his team finally reached the Starbreaker control room. Only 15 of his 50 soldiers remained. They burst through the final door to find the Supreme Counselor standing before the weapons activation console. The ancient being looked at Deho with something like pity. You should have stayed hidden, human. You could have rebuilt in peace. Instead, you come here to die for what, revenge? It will not bring your world back. No, Deho said, raising his weapon. But it will prevent you from destroying another world. Step away from that console. The Supreme Counselor laughed. You cannot stop this. In 30 seconds, the Starbreaker activates. This system dies, you die. Your fleet dies. And the Council's honor dies with dignity rather than in defeat. Honor? Deho stepped closer. You speak of honor? You who voted to burn an entire species? You who stole their achievements and claimed them as your own? There is no honor in genocide. There is no dignity in mass murder. And there is no future for those who refuse to accept responsibility for their crimes. He fired, not at the Supreme Counselor, but at the console. His weapon tore through the controls, shredding circuits and processors. The countdown stopped. The Starbreaker went dark. The Supreme Counselor stared in shock. You destroyed it? You could have killed me, but you chose the weapon? Because we are not you, Deho said. We do not kill when we can capture. We do not destroy when we can preserve. You will stand trial. You will answer for your crimes. But you will live because unlike you, we understand that life is sacred. He signaled his team. They arrested the Supreme Counselor and began extracting the other council members from their hiding places throughout the building. Not one was harmed beyond what was necessary to secure them. Deho contacted the fleet. Starbreaker disabled. Council leaders in custody. Mission complete. Above the planet, the Council fleet received the news and began surrendering. Ship after ship powered down weapons and lowered shields. The battle was over. The war was over. Commander Minho sat back in his chair, exhausted. It is done. Finally, it is done. But Ji-won shook her head. No, the fighting is done. But our real work is just beginning. Now we must show the galaxy that we can build as well as we can destroy, that we can create justice, not just deliver vengeance. She broadcast to the entire galaxy. Every species, every world, every ship. Her message was simple and clear. The Galactic Council is dissolved. Its leaders will face trial for crimes against sapient life. But this is not conquest. We do not claim their territory or their power. Instead, we invite every species to join us in building something new, a true democracy where all voices are equal, where power does not mean the right to dominate, where the strong protect the weak rather than exploit them. She paused, then continued. We have shown you what we can do in war. Now we will show you what we can do in peace. The choice is yours. Join us in building a better galaxy, or remain trapped in the old ways. But know this. Never again will any species be allowed to do what was done to Earth. Never again will genocide be policy. Never again will the strong destroy the weak simply because they can. This we swear on the ashes of our home and the memory of our dead. Throughout the galaxy, species watched and listened. Some were afraid of this new power. Others were hopeful. But all understood that something fundamental had changed. The age of the Council was over. What came next was uncertain. On Velonis, Deho and his team emerged from the Council chambers with their prisoners. Civilians watched in silence as the mighty rulers of the galaxy were led away in chains. Not one human showed triumph or gloated. They simply did their duty with quiet professionalism. Counselor Kyungmi, who had lived through everything, arrived on the surface. She looked at the captured council leaders with eyes that had seen too much. "I remember when you passed sentence on Earth," she said softly. "I remember your certainty, your arrogance. You never imagined you would stand where you stand now." The Supreme Counselor met her gaze. "What now? Execution? Torture? Revenge?" "No," Kyungmi replied. "Trial. Fair trial under laws that apply to everyone, even the powerful. You will have advocates. Evidence will be examined and judgment will be rendered by representatives of all species, not just humans. You will receive the justice you denied us, and that perhaps is the crueler punishment. You will live long enough to see that we are better than you ever were." She turned away. Behind her, the galaxy began its transformation. The old order was dead. Something new was being born. And humanity, who had every reason to be tyrants, chose instead to be teachers. They had returned after 10,000 years. They had found justice for Earth. And now, finally, they could begin the work of ensuring no species would ever need to seek such justice again. 5 years had passed since the war ended. The galaxy looked different now. Where once the Council ruled with absolute power, now the Galactic Assembly met in open debate. Every species had a voice, from the oldest civilizations to the youngest. And the headquarters stood on a new world called New Earth, built in the Sol system as a monument to both loss and hope. Admiral Jiwon no longer commanded a fleet. She had stepped down from military service and now worked as humanity's chief diplomat. Her days were spent in negotiations, mediating disputes, helping former enemies learn to work together. It was harder than war had been. War had clear objectives and defined enemies. Peace required patience with people who did not want to change. She sat in the assembly chambers watching representatives argue about resource allocation. Two species who had once been council vassals were now fighting over mining rights to an asteroid field. The argument was heated but not violent. That was progress. "They are learning," said a voice beside her. Counselor Kyungmi, now even older at 10,447 years, sat in the observer's gallery. "Slowly, but they are learning that disputes can be settled with words instead of weapons." "Some days I wonder if this will work," Jiwon admitted. "The old patterns run deep. Some species still believe in dominance. They just hide it better now," Kyungmi smiled. "Change takes time. We lived under the Council for 100,000 years. We will not fix that damage in 5. But look at what we have accomplished. Look at how far we have come." She was right. The Galactic Assembly had established laws protecting sapient rights. Wars of conquest were now illegal and enforced by a combined fleet. Species that had been enslaved were now free. And, most importantly, younger civilizations no longer lived in fear that refusing the powerful would mean extinction. Commander Minho worked far from the political centers. He trained the new Galactic Defense Force, a military composed of volunteers from 47 species. His job was to teach them a new way of thinking. Defense, not conquest. Protection, not domination. On a training station orbiting a neutral world, he watched his students practice combat maneuvers. They were good, but they still thought like conquerors. When they won simulations, they pursued fleeing enemies to destruction. When they lost, they fought to the last ship rather than retreating. Minho stopped the exercise. "Why did you pursue them?" he asked the winning team. "To ensure complete victory, sir," a young officer replied, confused by the question. "But they were fleeing," Minho said. "They were no longer a threat. You chased them across 3 systems, leaving your original objective undefended, to destroy enemies who had already been defeated. That is not defense. That is vengeance." The officer looked uncomfortable. "But we were taught that enemies must be eliminated completely. And that is why you are here," Minho said gently. to unlearn that teaching. Our purpose is not to eliminate enemies. It is to protect the innocent. If an enemy flees, let them go. Save your strength for those who truly threaten others. Remember, proportional response, measured force, justice, not revenge. It was difficult work, reprogramming thousands of years of military thinking. But Minho persisted. He told them stories of Earth, of what happened when power ran unchecked. He showed them the cost of believing might made right. And slowly, gradually, his students began to understand. Dr. Hana oversaw the most important project in human history. Deep beneath New Earth's surface, in chambers that could sustain billions, she supervised the Resurrection Project. Using the genetic data recovered from Earth's archives, humanity's dead were being reborn. But it was not simple cloning. Each resurrected human received the memories and personality patterns of their original self. They would wake up knowing who they were, remembering their lives, but also aware that 10,000 years had passed. It was a delicate process, requiring careful psychological support. Hana watched as the first generation emerged from the growth chambers. They were children now, but with adult minds and ancient memories. It was unsettling but necessary. They would grow quickly, accelerated by technology, and within years would be full members of society again. One little girl approached Hana. She had the genetic pattern of a scientist who died in Earth's final hours. "Hello," the girl said. "Thank you for bringing me back." "Did we win?" Hana knelt to meet her eyes. "We survived. We endured, and we built something better than what came before. Your death, all the deaths, they were not meaningless. They taught the galaxy what happens when power is not tempered by compassion. You helped change everything." The girl nodded solemnly, then ran off to play with the others. Hana watched them and felt tears on her cheeks. These were the ghosts of Earth given new life. They deserved a galaxy worthy of them. Captain Deho, promoted after the war, led the Reconciliation Corps. His teams traveled to worlds damaged by the conflict, helping rebuild what had been destroyed. It was unglamorous work. They cleared debris, rebuilt infrastructure, mediated between survivors and former enemies. On a planet that had been a Council military base, Deho worked alongside former Council soldiers to construct a school. The irony was not lost on him. These people had fought against humanity. Now they worked together to build a future. "Why do you help us?" one former enemy asked. "We tried to kill you. We supported the Council that destroyed Earth. Why would you want to rebuild our world?" Deho continued working as he answered. "Because you are not your leaders. Most of you were born after Earth died. You followed orders like soldiers always do, and now you have a chance to choose differently. We help you because that is what justice looks like. Not revenge on the innocent, but giving everyone the chance to be better than they were." The former soldier was quiet for a moment. "I am glad you won. I did not think I would ever say that, but I am. The Council lied to us. They said they brought order, but it was just oppression with a prettier name. What you are building is actually better. Not everyone adapted so easily. 5 years after the war, radical elements from the old Council species attempted a coup. They seized control of a sector fleet and declared themselves the legitimate government of the galaxy. They broadcast demands, restore Council authority, return to the old ways, punish humanity for its rebellion. The galaxy held its breath. How would humanity respond? Would they revert to the brutal efficiency that won the war? Would this new peace collapse at the first real challenge? Admiral Jiwon surprised everyone. She did not mobilize the fleet. She did not threaten force. Instead, she opened negotiations. She spoke directly to the coup leaders, broadcast to the entire galaxy so everyone could see. "I understand your fear," she said. "Change is frightening. The old ways were familiar even if they were unjust. But I ask you, what did those old ways bring you? Security for the powerful, yes, but also eternal submission for the weak. You lived in a galaxy where one wrong move meant extinction. Do you truly want to return to that?" She paused, then made an offer. "You have 2 choices. Face trial for this rebellion and accept imprisonment, or accept exile beyond the galactic rim. Go out into the darkness, build your own civilization as we once did, and perhaps you will learn what we learned, that survival requires more than strength. It requires wisdom." The coup leaders debated among themselves. Some chose trial, willing to accept judgment for their actions. Others chose exile, taking their ships into the void beyond known space. The fleet was recovered without a single shot fired. The crisis passed. The galaxy learned something that day. Humanity's strength was not just in their weapons or tactics. It was in their restraint, in their willingness to show mercy even when violence would have been easier. On the 10,005th anniversary of Earth's destruction, a ceremony was held at the Old World. Every species sent representatives. They gathered on the scorched surface, around a monument that had been built from the fused stone of ancient cities. The monument was a black obelisk, 3 kilometers tall, inscribed with 12 billion names. Every human who died in the burning. At its base was a simple inscription: "We remember. We forgive." "We do not forget," Admiral Jiwan spoke at the ceremony. "We built this monument not just to remember our dead, but to ensure the galaxy never forgets what happened here. This is what injustice looks like. This is the price of unchecked power. Let this place be a warning and a promise. Never again." Representatives from every species placed tokens at the monument's base, symbols of peace, promises of change, commitments to a better future. Even former council species participated, acknowledging their shared guilt. As the ceremony ended, Counselor Kyungmi stood before the monument one last time. She was ready to enter her final sleep, her life's purpose fulfilled. She recorded a last message for the archives. "To whoever finds this," she said, her ancient voice steady, "know that justice delayed is not justice denied. We waited 10,000 years, but we did not wait in vain. Evil given enough time devours itself. Good given enough patience flourishes. We are proof. And to humanity, my children who I watched grow from refugees to guardians, I am so very proud. You chose the harder path. You chose mercy over vengeance, building over burning. That is why you deserve the future you have created." She passed peacefully, surrounded by the people she had protected for so long. The galaxy mourned her, this last witness to Earth's burning.